Forget we're also streaming live on YouTube, so please subscribe to our page so you get to see what goes on behind the scene and not just listen to our voices, but also catch up on videos from past editions as well.
Exactly. And let's get into the stories. But before that, we introduce our analysts who are in for a Thursday morning. Very excited to have all three in the studio. We have Funmi Odude. Good morning, Funmi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Try that again. Good morning, Funmi.
Good morning.
And Mr. Ireti Bakare Yusuf. Good morning.
Morning, Val. Morning,
Hi.
Ayo.
Good morning. And we have Ugo Dre in the studio with us. Hey, morning. Good morning. Find Ugo Dre at Ugo Dre on Twitter. This Ireti is at sisiogelagos. Funmi Odude is at Funmi Odude.
All right, let's dig into our first story. This one here, I'll start with Funmi. Now, Senate passes PIGB, 6 others begins process of overriding Buhari's veto in Vanguard. Now, just to say that the Senate has begun the process of overriding the president's veto on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Just last week, we talked about the fact that yes, that the president
they're working
finally. That he cited a few parts of the Constitution to say that it was going to go against that, so he couldn't sign this particular bill, but the Senate are saying actually we're going to try and veto that.
Okay, so that particular bill is the budget timeline bill. But yes. Before we talk on that quickly, I'm sure a lot of people are excited about the PIGB. I was almost getting scared that is the 8th National Assembly going to pass not going to do this before they finally leave
or move it to the next level.
Well, so if we had to start all over with the next assembly, I don't know, it's been too many years coming. So yes, the Senate has passed the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill 2019, the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Bill, the National Research and Innovation Council Bill, the Stamp Duties Act Amendment Bill, the Agricultural Seed Council Bill, the Agricultural Credit Guarantee Scheme Fund Amendment Bill, and the INEC Act Amendment Bill. Now, they spoke a bit about the budget timeline bill,
yes,
and it has passed its second reading at the Wednesday plenary. Now, the major issue about this bill has been the purpose of the bill is to ensure that we revert back to the January to the December budget cycle. So the bill made provisions for when the appropriation bill is supposed to be passed. And the president had raised an issue that he felt that bill violated the provisions of Section 58.4 of the Constitution. Now, Section 58.4 of the Constitution just provides the timeline within which the president must assent or withhold his assent to a bill, which is 30 days. The provision says that within 30 days, the president must assent or withhold his assent and give reasons for withholding his assent. So his position is that another amendment to, because the appropriation bill is a bill as well, and a bill that would create another timeline within which certain to pass a special kind of bill will violate that provision. But the Senate has said that, well, their bill isn't going to do that their bill mostly deals with when the parliament has to pass the appropriation bill before, and it basically states that you must pass it before the commencement of the next financial year. I personally would like to see this bill passed. It's very important. The fact that we always have to keep going back to what's that thing called? The bill for
that's the budget cycle.
No, not just the budget cycle. We always have to go back and pass another bill to cushion
the supplementary bills.
The supplementary bills, because we never meet. It would be nice to have a bit of order.
How many
in respect of this? Then yes, and then they need to send. Now they've sent it back to the House of Representatives. They need 2/3, and then they've sent it back to the House of Representatives to pass through another set of readings. And so let's see if that will be done. I personally want this. I want this bill passed.
So the question would ask is the president has declined to assent to a number of bills. The Senate has passed and it's come to him and it's come. Would you understand? Is there a reason behind this? I know he cited a few things that contravening this particular section and all that, but for such an important bill, why would you think he would decline to assent on it?
Well, the reason I can give is the reason he has stated. I mean, whether there's another hidden reason he doesn't want to express, I can't read his mind, but he has stated that he feels that the Constitution has already provided a timeline within which he must assent to bills. But this bill goes beyond just when he has to assent. It goes to when the parastatals and ministries have to submit the entire defending process, when the Senate themselves have to pass it. You know, they always use this excuse because there's no timeline. You hear that the committee, the committee is still sitting on it, the committee. So when we put timelines to these things, maybe we'll get a normal financial
some
cycle
structure,
back.
some order.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Funmi. I'll move on to Miss Ireti for the next story. Now, Miss Ireti, looking at the police extrajudicial killings, police official advises against speaking Queen's English to officers. Now, just to remind our listeners out there that in 2018, police recruitment stated that one of the requirements for a police officer is to have O-level certificate, and one of which 5 credit passes, 2 in maths English, in not more than 2 sittings.
Lagos, you need to see the look on Ayo's face. Because when I start speaking now, you'll all be like, you should say she was like,
And by the
as
way,
in,
Miss Ireti, you speak Queen's English, don't you?
well,
Straight from Buckingham Palace.
it was paid for, my darling. It was paid for, as I keep telling everybody. Yeah, so I say, at first when you read this, you are forgiven for thinking, you know, he actually means Queen's English. No, that's not what he means. What he means and what he was trying to say, and what happens here is when you have people who make statements on behalf of organizations who are inarticulate, that's where his problem is, and they're lacking in vocabulary themselves. This is what happens. What he's trying to say is, let's speak our pidgin. End of. Pidgin is a language. We must stop making it seem almost like it's secondary to all other languages. It's actually a language by itself.
It's not our official language.
No, actually, it's, my dear, it is. Stop it. Hold on. No, hold on. Hold on. Okay, if I start, you know, you're interrupting me and you're not allowing me to finish.
Ahead,
right. So, Pidgin is our language, right? Now, Pidgin is the most spoken language in this country. Pidgin is the language of everybody, including the masses, right? And the elites, if you like, and the middle class. So therefore, our language of communication is English, given that we all have our own individual ethnic language. So what he's saying is, Ireti, don't go and speak to a policeman the way I'm talking to you now. What he's saying is, speak to a policeman in the language that everybody understands. Now, this is critical. No, please allow me. This is critical. We forget that language is important, number one. Also, communication is about the receiver, not the giver. So if I speak, I will never speak to a policeman in this accent. Never, ever, ever. It would be idiotic of me to do so.
Why would it be?
And thank you, good question. Why would it be? Because I want him to be able to respond to me. Now, how are you going to be able to respond to something you don't understand? So I'm going to speak to him in the worst pidgin that I speak, okay? But I know that through speaking that very bad pidgin, he's going to figure out what I'm trying to say. That's what's important here. So
You can't speak Pidgin.
no, then I would, yeah, allow me. Outside of the fact that everybody speaks Pidgin, the other thing that I won't do is I'm not going to use this. So if you realize that the way I'm speaking now is a little bit more high pitched. When I speak my Yoruba, I will speak it like this. When I'm speaking Nigeria English, I speak. No, it's true. And if language, communication, management, in management, you are taught first and in fact, when you are taught English, you are taught that it is first and foremost about communication. Yeah. It's about getting a message across. So if I'm going to speak to the policeman, Organ, how are you now? He's going to understand that.
I just need
so
to bring
this is why. But what's important? Yes. Let's get away from the language. What is important in this story is that he's trying to make an excuse.
I was going to
for extrajudicial killings. So I really didn't want to do that much, but I needed to correct that whole Queen's English thing because it's a silly way that they put it in as the headline. He's making excuses against extrajudicial killings, and that's not what's happening here. Because a lot of boys and girls, but mostly boys, who are attacked by SARS actually don't speak like me. They're speaking oh boy,
They-
that kind. They
yes.
speak pidgin. They speak straight language. They speak the language that the policeman would understand. So this guy, I find him very irresponsible.
Thank
And
you.
actually, he should not be. Who said thank you?
So
Yeah,
it's the
I
head
find
of police
I
public
find him.
complaints
Yeah,
unit,
but
Ayo Mairo Ese, but
and
just let
therein
people know.
lies the issue. If the head of the police complaints unit is actually saying, oh, the reason the policeman shot you, the reason he killed you, the reason he slapped you is because you're speaking like this, then that person shouldn't have his job, because clearly he doesn't understand what communication is.
Thank you.
That's
very
my
much.
point.
Sorry, before we go, can I quickly state that beyond communication, we have a problem with the police putting the duty of avoiding kasala on the
Yes,
citizens.
exactly.
So the police themselves, they've accepted
They
that
have
it's
a
your
responsibility.
duty,
Yes.
it is your duty to avoid trouble with the police.
Yes.
You know,
that's
but
the
we
essence of
We
the
shouldn't be at the
truth.
mercy of the police.
No,
That is the
absolutely
way
not.
it's presented.
We're actually saying very soon they're going to release a handbook how to deal with police officers so that we, the citizens, can be protected.
Do you understand?
But
So
it's the
that was
same
the-
thing that
was the
happens.
essence
This
of
is
the
always
tweet.
what happens in Nigeria, isn't it? So you criticize or you question the behavior of a social group, or not so much what do you call them? Anyway, any government kind of group, and they say, well, it's your fault. It's because you're not speaking to them properly. It's because you're not doing this properly.
have
Whereas,
tattoos.
exactly, or you have dreads or whatever. Whereas the police forget, and I think that's the training. But I did, in fairness to the police, I did read it very recently that I can't remember whether it's the IGP of Lagos or wherever who has said that they're all going to go back for training. They want, because he came out and he spoke against this
Yeah, the
extrajudicial
IG, the acting
killing.
IG
So,
did, yeah.
and I think that's important. And when they do that, then one of the things they need to let them know is that it is their responsibility
All right.
to ensure that no citizen loses their lives.
Thank
It's
you.
not the citizen's responsibility.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ireti.
We have a message here. Kenneth on the road here says, please notify authorities concerned. Okay, he's talking about big potholes. Thank you very much for that. And we have more messages coming in on WhatsApp. That number is 0809-444-0981. We'll get to them in time.
Yeah, Ugo Dre. Ugo's Twitter handle is Ugo Dre. Someone's asking. All right, TSA Treasury single account. Presidential panel recovers unremitted $20 million from commercial banks. I'll come back to you for this one.
Okay, so this story is amazing, and unfortunately, it does not. There's a lot of secrecy involved due to they want to protect the bank. So basically, what the story says is that the Special Presidential Investigation Panel for the Recovery of Public Property have recovered $20 million from one of the commercial banks in the country. So they discovered that an agency of government, again unnamed, did not obey the directive, the TSA directive at the time that it was given. And so they had $232 million unremitted to the federal government's treasury single accounts. Number one, I would like to know what agency of government that is that has that amount of money. I mean, it was one of the generating revenue generating ones. No, they're naming. So that's my problem with the story. They refuse to name the agency. They refuse to name the commercial bank. And so they have sort of reached an agreement with the bank. The story does not say anything about the agency, but they have reached an agreement with the bank because the amount in question, if deducted as a whole, could lead to the failure of the bank. So they have reached an agreement with the bank for a monthly, to pay back the money in monthly installments of $10 million per month. And herein lies the problem. Number one, so Ugo, we have banks that are standing by with stolen money. Is that the point? Because I'm like, they're reaching an agreement with the bank.
Deposited money at the moment.
Yeah, but
because
that's
they're
the point.
supposed
That
to
should
have
not form part of the capital of the bank. So if the bank is reaching an agreement that we can't pay this money at once, it must have sort of entered into their capital one way or the other. If there's an agreement as to monthly installments, I mean, that means it's entered into the operations.
And then shouldn't we question the authority that has oversight functions over this bank, the Central Bank of
CBN,
Nigeria?
exactly. So how
I said it was hidden somewhere, so it wasn't.
How?
So it does the investigation. has
When
now
cash lodgements are
unraveled.
made, there are certain
It's
reports that are
crazy.
supposed to be fielded to the CBN.
crazy.
Right?
We know what this
And the
country's
crazier
banking system
and the
is
crazier
like,
part
don't
of
we?
it is the fact that I mean everything is we don't know any names, so we don't know if there'll be any prosecutions. If anybody is going to
Yes, but surely the person that made the deposit, I mean, okay, you and I are normal human beings. These kind of people are not we're mere mortals, right? So
Yeah.
that's what happens
But
in
it's an
Nigeria.
agency, so if it were one person, then they would probably have to have made that report to the CBN.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
it's
but
an
there's a
agency.
paper trail.
All
There's
right.
a paper
Exactly.
trail
I
to
have
all
a
of
problem
these
with the fact
things.
that we don't even know this agency.
Yes.
We don't know the bank in question.
There's a paper trail.
It's
Surely,
just
I mean, they
funny.
didn't just appear.
Well, Lagos, let's hear your thoughts on this one. If you have a solution or you have an opinion on this particular story, or you know the agency by any chance, maybe you'd like to let us know. All right.
L says, how many people can actually speak Queen's English? These guys are irresponsible and should be prosecuted.
Yes.
That's what L says. Ohio says, please, no. We have more messages coming in, and this one is from Austin. Austin says, good morning, crew, and thanks for the good job. Is Mr. Ireti saying the police are as a body are illiterate? That's a question.
All right. Okay. Let's move. That's
Can I please answer him?
when you
No,
take
I
your first
actually,
take.
perhaps you need to go and do play again. We have play again. We have that thing, listen again.
Yeah.
Yes, he needs to go and listen again.
All right. It's on YouTube.
Don't make
That's
comments
it.
when you're only listening to half of the show.
All right, Ms. Ireti, thank you very much. Funmi, I'll come back to you for this one. Kidnapping. Senate OK's 5-year jail term for police impersonators. Punch Newspaper has this.
Okay, so out of all the so many things in the police reform bill, that's the headline
Yeah.
that Punch decides to give to us. So yeah, the police reform bill, some parts of it, and yes, so we have a 5-year jail sentence for police impersonators that commit that use impersonation for kidnapping, and we also. But the more important part of the bills that I think I like are the ones that sort of create independence for the IGP.
Yes.
So
That's the one.
the legislation is proposing a 5-year single tenure for the Inspector General of Police, subject to the approval of the Senate. And also, according to the bill, the IGP can no longer be unilaterally sacked by the president without the approval of the Police Council. So the Nigerian Police Council will nominate 3 applicants from a pool of applicants for the position of IGP to the president for appointment. And then the president shall appoint the IGP from the recommended applicants, subject to the confirmation of the Senate. For the removal of the IGP, the bill proposes that the Nigeria Police Council will make recommendation to that effect to the president, but it won't require Senate approval. So I think those are very important
key,
parts.
yes.
Yes, I mean, for security agencies, one particular problem we've had is the accusation that they're partisan,
Yes.
always tied to appointment and sacking. So
All right. Thank you very much, Funmi.
Messages here. This one's from Femi from Lekki. He says, I do not allow my kids to use pidgin when I put them in Yoruba class. Why should we take something good and debase it? Then we come around to complain about the educational standards. Are books and teachings conducted in pidgin? More questions regarding
Pidgin is a language.
Seriously, hang on. Let's continue with more stories, please. We have this next story here that's coming in from The Guardian. Professionals call for due process, fault piecemeal tax reform. Still the outcry surrounding the tax reforms in Nigeria. Ugo, according to this story, now the value added tax, you remember the rumor and the anticipation, or rather the sentiment surrounding the alleged or indicated increase in tax. That was an idea that's been played around by the federal government, but a body came together saying that they do not think it's a good idea, that that will be just affecting the purchasing power of customers and consumers of products and goods and services. Your thoughts?
Yeah, there was a seminar held by the CIT and Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, and tax administrators came together and they were like, look, rather than just have all this piecemeal passage of laws and VAT and personal income tax and PAT, why don't we just have an overhaul? Why don't we just overhaul our tax system and just have complete tax reform once and for all, so that this doesn't just always have time all the time. And by the way, before you even say you want to increase VAT from maybe 5 to 10% or to 7.5%, it actually has to go through legislature. So it's not that simple. It's going to take a while. So it's just been mooted now, and even if it's going to happen, I don't see it happening in the next 1 or 2 years. And then some are also calling for, rather than just increase taxes unilaterally, why don't you just broaden the tax net? And there's a case for it. For example, I have this data here. As at 2013, total amount collected from VAT was 481 billion. 2014 it was 493 billion. Now 2015 759 billion. Fast forward to 2018, we're already doing 1 trillion on VAT alone. So within 5 years we've gone from 481 billion to about 1 trillion, despite the recession. So that's why people are saying, look, rather than just increase VAT, why don't you just broaden the tax?
The nets,
Do
yes.
better at tax collection.
And
And then you come
regulate the
into-
process.
Yeah, because VAT revenue as a percentage of GDP is still pretty low, one of the lowest in the world. We're not saying you don't need to increase tax rate at some point in time, but you actually have a lot of low-hanging fruits out there that you haven't actually blocked.
Thank you, Ugo. I'll come back to you, Mr. Ireti, but first let me take this message. Informer from Ikoyi says, "Good morning, all. I'm appalled." Excuse me. So now, speaking as an educated person is a problem in this country. This is yet another attack at our collective intellect as a people. The issue is not the English spoken, but the attitude and tone used to communicate. Pidgin, no matter how widely spoken, is not our lingua franca. The day it becomes one, then okay. What happened to police training? Why can't they be sent for emotional intelligence training or social science? Come on. Why should our police or anyone be excused for wild, uncontrolled behavior? We speak English. Thank you.
And on a lighter note, Adekunle Yusuf, just to lighten the mood. Hi guys, maybe we should be asking the police, pigeon or queens before engaging.
Best comment so far.
I love it. Anyway, I'll come back to you, Mr. Ireti. Let's talk about Governor Obiano's new bill. So it's called the Funeral Control Bill, restricting people from conducting elaborate funerals. He said communities should hold funerals for at least 3 days. And I mean, just take us through the other line items.
Well, so we go from the sublime to the ridiculous this morning. Governor Obiano, who clearly has forgotten that there are very, very important things that he needs to deal with, decides to poke his nose into how funerals happen in his state. And when I say funerals, that's how citizens choose to bury their dead. So here's what the bill says. First thing it says, the Anambra State House of Assembly on Wednesday passed the bill to stop expensive funerals in the state. That's number one. So, quote, the bill says in the event of death, no person shall deposit any corpse in the mortuary or any place beyond 2 months from the date of the death, while burial ceremonies in the state shall be for 1 day. It goes on. Shall the deceased, families of the deceased shall provide food for their kindred relatives and other sympathizers at their own discretion. Now, initially when we were all discussing, I was discussing with my girls downstairs and we're talking about this, and initially we had all thought that it was going to be, especially me, I thought, which is one of the reasons I picked the story, I thought, oh, okay, this is going to get rid of a lot of the cultural practice that's very much against women. But actually this is not what this bill does. What this bill does is try to interfere with choices of citizens. Now, I'm not for expensive funerals, but that's neither here nor there. That's their business. However you want to bury your dead should be your business. Now, I understand that there are customary stuff that they do in a number of states that may not be palatable to other people. But if he had used this bill to say, look, it's now against the law for you to force widows to drink the water from that they wash the dead. What do you call it? The water that they wash the dead with. It's against. The bill is now against. It's now illegal for you to shave off a woman's head. It's now illegal for you to insist that she must mourn at home for however many days they have to.
Infringing on their fundamental human rights.
Right. If that is what this bill had been for, then one could have applauded it. Personally, I just think this is yet another postulation, and what he's doing is he's basically trying to. It's perfunctory. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
It's a bit like the way they were trying to stop us from spraying money. Did it really last? Of course, it's not going to last. And just like all those silly bills, this is just going to die the same day.
I mean, before we knock it completely, let's two angles to this.
Go ahead.
First, in support of your argument, I mean, fundamental human rights. Really, I hoped that it would have more attention.
Yes, to that.
And then again, we look at the aspect of we have customary law for a reason. Right? There's customs and traditions that should be respected. But if you look at his own point, certain practices could be unique to particular regions. We know in Anambra State, for instance, in the east, they take it over the top. If we feel like we know funerals here, let's go to Anambra. And the Owambe is here, we know. But if you look at those things, do you think he might be, taking a step further, a bold step, taking authority into his hand to make sure that he stops you or curtails or regulates these excesses?
Well, you can't, this is what I'm saying, you can't dictate, okay, so you can't legislate against how people spend their money. You can legislate against actions that actually that's dangerous to the society at large. So you can't legislate for my thoughts. So, for instance, I have a very close girlfriend who's about to bury her grandmother. They're from Arochukwu. A lot of what she's doing is not necessarily what she would necessarily agree with, but she's doing it because that's what her grandmother would have wanted.
How about cases where they block streets for weeks?
Then say that it's illegal to block a street. That affects the society at large, the community at large. So do it in your compound and close off your compound for 200 days if that's what you want to do. Dance, put the dead on your head and do somersaults if that's what you want to do. I don't care.
Let me come back to you, Ugo, for this next story from New Telegraph. Senate drops bill seeking to phase out petrol vehicles in Nigeria. And this was a bill that was sponsored by a common sense senator, Senator Ben Murray Bruce. He said, well, that posterity would really remind us of this bill that he's trying to sponsor. It was knocked by the senators at large. They were almost forced to reject the bill, but they gave him a chance to withdraw it. Your thoughts on the story?
It's a bill that's before its time. They said it was relevant, and to an extent, I kind of agree. Even though the world is moving towards renewable energy, there are some countries that have passed laws like this already. But Nigeria is not ready for it at the moment, and let's just not kid ourselves. It's probably the bill is probably 10 years early.
But he was proposing this to take effect from 2035.
Yeah, but then it's not. I mean, why start to debate it now? So I think that personally, my opinion is that Ben Bruce just wants this to go on record that he's the first senator to have at least.
Okay, so when
He's known as the Green
so we can as well just ascribe that.
He's what?
The Green Senator.
Which part? Which part?
Let's examine this. I understand where you're coming from, right? But
Green
let's
is
look
the
at
color
this
of money.
Some 2 weeks ago, the Lagos was very hot.
Yeah.
Right. It was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, we had a heat
we cannot exactly heat wave. We cannot ignore the effects of climate change in recent times. We know that these cars are energy efficient, environment friendly, all these things. There are a lot of positives, like I said, against the negatives. But why exactly do you think Nigeria is not ready? I mean, let's start somewhere, right?
So what you can pass a clean energy bill, or maybe sign up to some of these climate change regulations that they have across the world. There are other ways you can do it rather than say you want to pass electricity bill or whatever. So as far as I'm concerned, this is all just true.
Can we talk about flaring gas if you're talking about
So
that?
there's just so many other
Can I
things that
just
you can
even
do.
say, sorry, please, very quickly, I know Valentine is having
Even linking it
kittens
with
right
the
now.
next story, Mr.
Very
It's good
quickly.
you took the mic.
Okay.
Talking about fields.
Okay, very quickly though, but you don't even need to go that far. He can just say, you know what, let me work with the environmentalists who are currently working against these things in Nigeria, because there are those who is not create a whole new bill. So yes, Mr. Common Sense with the sense that's not so common. Yes, let's move on.
Well, let's link it with this next one. Actually, it's for you, Ugo Dre. Now, fuel will continue to sell for 145 naira per litre. That's a reassurance that's coming from the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a rumor about fuel subsidy being removed, and I guess that's what caused the scarcity.
And also the landing
last
costs
year.
being increased.
Yeah,
The
landing costs
announcement.
has increased.
Yeah.
It's not that it's increased because of course oil prices has gone up. But you see, let's not kid ourselves, Nigeria. This government that I know, this government will not remove fuel subsidy. They don't plan to. From what I gather, Baba does not want to hear at all. So the only way you can take this out is one, via appropriation, so you don't appropriate fuel subsidy in the budget, which I think we don't have at the moment, and then maybe shut down NNPC, or maybe through the PIGB bill, make NNPC more accountable. Then there's no way out for them. But so long as you have NNPC and maybe appropriation, then they can always do it. So, but if you expect that the government will just come and declare, hello Nigeria, no more fuel subsidy, no, it's not gonna happen.
All right, finally, from Bankole Singer, he says, any police officer, that's on Twitter, any police officer who cannot speak or understand English shouldn't wear the uniform. Yes, Pidgin English is a language. However, not everyone can speak Pidgin English. The same way not everyone speaks Queen's English. And Tunde says police reform bill should be adopted and comprehensively implemented ASAP. Far more responsible professional behavior should be expected from police
Absolutely.
personnel. And that's it for the show. Thank you very much for your messages and thank you for your thoughts. Special thanks to sisiogelagos, Mr. Ireti Bakare Yusuf, and thank you to Funmi Odude for stepping in this morning. Special thanks to you, Ugo Dre, at Ugo Dre on Twitter. Lagos, coming up next, we talk with a very interesting celebrity, a friend, and a good orator. He's going to join us for Grapevine 981 for entertainment. Good morning.
Good morning.